The god of the sun shines his light across the land, the god whose works are perhaps the most visible of any. However, even the Shining One's light cannot reach every corner and crevice of the world, and darkness remains, harboring repulsive undead and terrible secrets. In the places Pelor's light lapses, his most devoted followers go, bringing light to the darkness, mercy to the desperate, and vengeance to the deserving. Today we look at the Radiant Servant of Pelor, the highest ranking of his mighty priesthood. Hello, and welcome to another video from 3.5 Archive. Today we're going to be doing our 100th D&D 3.5 Prestige class review, looking at the Radiant Servant of Pelor Prestige class from the Complete Divine Sourcebook. It was hard to decide which Prestige class deserved to be the 100th review on this channel, but seeing as the first ever review was a Tempest, a Prestige class I'd actually played through as a character, I felt that number 100 deserved the same honor. I've been playing a Radiant Servant of Pelor up to level 8 so far, so I can give some first-hand thoughts on my experience with the Prestige class. Radiant Servants are the ultimate clerics of Pelor. They embody the Shining One's domains, which are about healing and destroying undead, which Radiant Servants excel at. Almost all of them are clerics. Some rare examples are cleric paladin multi-classes, or cleric rangers, or sometimes cleric druids. Still, the best way to get into this Prestige class is to be a Cleric of Pelor for 6 levels, and then start taking levels as a Radiant Servant. To become a Radiant Servant of Pelor, you need to be neutral good, have a base will save of +5, have the extra turning feat, have 5 ranks in heal and 9 ranks in knowledge religion. Finally, you need to be able to cast first level divine spells and have access to the sun domain, as well as, of course, worshipping Pelor as your patron deity. That's quite a long list of requirements, but despite that, the Radiant Servant of Pelor is actually only a lightly restrictive prestige class, and has some very well-designed prerequisites. A lot of the requirements come with presupposing you're a Cleric of Pelor in the first place, which is easy to do since it is in the name of the class. You'll have to spend 5 ranks on Heal, which some clerics skip to take ranks in Concentration or Spellcraft, which are arguably much more important skills, but that can be tolerated, especially if you're playing a human and get some extra skill ranks. You might have to be sure to not have a low intelligence, but that shouldn't be too hard. Extra turning does take up one of your precious feat slots, but you'll definitely want it for this prestige class, and it fits thematically nonetheless. The Radiant Servant of Pelor is definitely a prestige class you want to build your character around, but it isn't so restrictive that every character coming into it looks the same. So what do you get as a Radiant Servant of Pelor? This prestige class starts out as your 7th level in most cases after you've taken 6 levels of Cleric. You get a d6 hit die, which is a downgrade from the regular Cleric, but you get 3/4 base attack bonus and a good fortitude and will save like a regular Cleric does. Perhaps most importantly, you get full spellcasting through all 10 levels of this prestige class. Already, this simplifies the calculus of evaluating this prestige class. At the cost of 1 feat and a hit die downgrade that will give you 10 fewer hit points over the long run, you get 9 features that you otherwise wouldn't if you continued to take levels in Cleric. Let's take a look at those features. At level 1, you get 3 of them. You get extra greater turning, radiance, and turn undead. The turn undead feature simply says that your cleric levels stack with levels in this prestige class for the purpose of turning undead. That's important, but about what we'd expect and not a lot to discuss there. Extra greater turning, as the name implies, gives you extra uses per day of the greater turn undead feature of the sun domain, which is why you needed to have that domain specifically in order to take this prestige class. You get to perform as many greater turn undeads as you would normally get to for your base turn undead. 3 plus your charisma modifier per day. Even with a poor charisma, this is an upgrade. Greater turn undead attempts are far better than normal ones as they destroy any undead that are normally turned by them. This alone makes you deadly against undead. While you need to succeed on 2 checks to pull it off, this feature gives you more attempts at it. Lastly, at level 1 you get Radiance, which doubles the radius and effective spell level of any spell with the light descriptor that you cast. The example given is a daylight spell, which would count as a 4th level spell for the purpose of dispelling any spells with the darkness descriptor of 4th level or lower, as well as having a 120-foot radius. This feature isn't amazing, but it can be solid with a little bit of work. The rules text says radius of illumination, so it's unclear whether this would apply to a spell such as Blistering Radiance, a spell from the spell compendium that creates a 50-foot radius of ongoing 2d6 damage in the area of its light. My experience was that it did, and thus a 100-foot radius blazing sun was able to make things very uncomfortable for a large camp full of orcs. Still, this feature came up perhaps the least of any given by the Prestige class in the campaign that I used it in. Radiant Servant is off to a great start, but things only get better from here. At level 2 you get Divine Health, which makes you immune to all diseases, including lycanthropy and mummy rot. By this level, those monsters are starting to get less relevant, but they're never out of the running to cause trouble for your character, and being flat out immune to disease isn't that big of a deal for a character who has 2 classes with a good fortitude save, but it's still a good thing to have in your back pocket. Also at level 2 you get Empower Healing. Whenever you cast a domain spell from the healing domain, that spell is affected as though by Empower Spell without using up a higher level spell slot. This feature is pretty solid, but keep in mind you need to be casting that spell using your domain slot, so you are limited to 4 such spells per day. Extra healing is pretty solid and saves you some money on Wands of Cure Light Wounds, though it's not that fantastic. It can be used if you want to burn undead with a touch attack in melee once you've run out of other options, but I've never made use of that personally, and didn't make a whole lot of use of this feature in general. It's fairly mediocre overall, but at least it's not your only second level feature. At level 3 you get Aura of Warding. This aura gives anyone within 10 feet of you a +2 morale bonus on all will saves. You get this bonus as well, giving you a free +2 on will saves on top of stacking the 2 good will saves from your 2 classes, and having an excellent wisdom. In other words, your only excuse for failing a will save is if you roll a natural 1. That's pretty great, and while clerics never struggle with will saves in the first place, yours will be particularly excellent. At level 4 you don't get a feature, but that's okay. This prestige class still offers more, and you'd be a fool to stop taking levels now. Especially because at level 5 you get a bonus domain. This can be either the Glory or Purification domain. You get the domains Granted Power and Spell List. Just going by the granted powers of these 2 domains, it's hard to not choose Glory, which gives you a +2 on your turning checks and +1d6 on your turning damage, which is impressive as it really gives you extra reach with your turn undead, and makes you more likely to overcome not only turn resistance, but also be able to just reach out and burn higher level undead out of existence with your multiple greater turns per day. On the other hand, Purification gives you +1 caster level and abjuration spells, which is nice, but really can't compare, especially in the context of this prestige class which is so focused on turning undead. This feature is amazing and possibly the second biggest draw of the class. At level 6 you get Maximize Healing. This works like the Empower Healing feature and in fact replaces it, at least for now. It has the same limitations as before, however, and while this will let you get out a guaranteed 30-point Cure Critical Wounds at this level, or more if you took feats like Augment Healing, it still requires you to use up your bonus domain slots. Odds are you won't need this, but if you feel like keeping some emergency healing up your sleeve for combats that go badly, this is at least decent. Level 7 doesn't give you a class feature, but again, it's good to still keep taking levels. At level 8 you get Positive Energy Burst. As a standard action you deal 1d6 per class level to all undead creatures within 100 feet. Unlike Cure Spells though, they get a reflex save instead of a will save, which they have a far worse chance of making in most cases. The DC of the reflex save doesn't involve your wisdom though, it's only 10 plus your class level. So you're going to be forcing all undead to make a DC 18 reflex save or take 8d6 damage. This will be good for automatically destroying an entire army of zombies or skeletons that have surrounded you, but that's about it. On average this is 28 or 14 damage, and that means that this can't even necessarily take out ghasts if they are quick enough. It's a solid ability and will improve slightly, even if these bursts use up 2 turn undead attempts, which does give you an outlet for your extra turn undead uses. Those might be better spent on a devotion feat, especially if your DM allows you to take devotion feats for domains you do not have, but that your deity still offers, such as the protection devotion feat, which is excellent. Level 9 doesn't give you a class feature, but at level 10 you finally get your last one, which is Supreme Healing, the final stage of your domain healing spell augmentation. You now apply both Maximize and Empower to your healing domain spells. Now your Cure Critical Wounds is healing at least 51 points of damage, which is pretty great, but you could also just cast a heal spell by this point if need be. This does essentially free up a 6th level spell slot at the cost of a 4th level one, since heal is usually overkill, but sometimes it isn't, and you'll often have to have it ready to go anyway. This feature is a bit disappointing that it doesn't apply to all of your healing spells. In-combat healing is usually a bad strategy anyway, but when you need it, and having a Radiant Servant become a fountain of healing energy is cool to have. A capstone related to turning undead would have been more satisfying, but it is what it is. Overall, the Radiant Servant of Pelor is an excellent prestige class. It embodies everything that Pelor stands for, giving at least one feature related to each of his domains. It also gives you a 3rd domain, which is always a powerful option. Add in something like the quicken turning feat from later in the book, and depending on the interpretation, you can throw out a greater turn undead against an undead before blasting them with a powerful spell as well. Undead show up in almost every D&D campaign at some point, and arguably the most reliable favored enemy option for rangers. So a prestige class focused on slaying them has some potential at the very least. The Radiant Servant of Pelor is going to get 3 stars for concept and 4 stars for execution, and in an undead heavy campaign that gets boosted to 5 stars. The dead levels are a bit disappointing, of course, and one wishes that the empower and maximized healing applied to all your healing spells, but it's really hard to complain about this prestige class. It's a great option, only held back by the fact that not every adventure will include undead. But if you're going to play a cleric and already have part of your class identity related to such creatures, then a prestige class capable of absolutely mopping the floor with them ought to be pretty satisfying to play. I will say from my own experience with the prestige class, you will be excited to fight undead and seek out new opportunities to destroy them. Having something like +7 or more on turning checks with an improved holy symbol, good charisma, all those ranks in knowledge religion, and being able to deal out 3d6 plus your level and hit dice of undead that you just outright destroy, makes things like turn resistance feel like a mere inconvenience. If there were a top 5 of prestige classes for fighting and destroying undead, the Radiant Servant of Pelor would absolutely be in the running in my opinion. And its peripheral features are decent as well. It is definitely a class worth taking for your Cleric of Pelor. So, that'll be about it for this D&D 3.5 Prestige class review. Thank you for supporting me and watching these videos and helping me get to 100 Prestige class reviews. I couldn't have done it without all of you. Please like and share this video and subscribe if you haven't, and leave a comment telling me what you think of this Prestige class. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time here on 3.5 Archive.